And welcome everybody to episode number one. This is episode number one. This is our second episode, but this is technically episode number one for the pilot. Please go back to, or please visit the YouTube channel from scratch the podcast to check out the very first thing that we did, and you will be pleasantly surprised. So we want to welcome everybody from near and from far, wherever you are listening to us, and welcome us into your sacred spaces. Thank you for doing so. And I want to bring into the stream our illustrious host and my favorite person on the planet, Theresa Angela. Please join us and say hello to the folks, please.
Hello, hello.
All righty. So we have a power-packed episode planned for you guys tonight, as we always do, and we're excited about this. This episode is going to be entitled "Settling into the Magic." Settling into the magic. You're going to get a big kick out of this. Be very informative, very empowering, and very encouraging. Teresa, would you care to set this up with folks to get us started?
Absolutely. So, welcome everyone. So, this is, like James mentioned, this is our actual first episode. Thank you for those who did support and watched our pilot. We had a few bumps in the road getting that going. I had a very needy parrot in the background, so thank you for your patience. And if you're back, because that episode didn't scare you away, welcome again. So today's episode is settling into the magic, the secrets of finding magic in your own life. This is a very special episode, and we have a lot in store to share with everyone.
Time. Before we get started, again, just real quick, I want to remind everybody, for those of you watching us stream through YouTube, please feel free to interact with us. Share your thoughts and your comments right in the comment section there. We'll be able to see your comments and respond to those comments live in the moment as we go through this. So please feel free to do that. And just in general, please feel free to like, to comment, and certainly to subscribe and to share this podcast. So if anybody that you feel like might benefit from this, please take the link and share it, and we will be most appreciated. My folks are from the South, so we don't say thank you. We say we appreciate you. That's the way we say it. We appreciate y'all. And we, Teresa and I, certainly do appreciate y'all this Thursday evening. Teresa, is there anything that I'm missing before we launch?
I know, I just want to remind you that you're looking for any interaction is going to be coming from YouTube.
Interaction coming from YouTube.
Yes.
Absolutely. We'll be looking.
So that's your job, not mine. And we're ready to jump in.
We
So
are ready to jump
what
in.
is magic? What is the textbook definition of magic? I didn't go too far. I jumped right into Oxford, and the Oxford says that the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. That's their definition of magic. The magic we're going to talk about this evening, we're actually going to talk about a book, and we have a few experiences and some magical paranormal stories to share so that we can make sure that we're coming across to our listeners about the type of magic we're discussing. This is not hocus pocus tonight. This is about seeing and experiencing and feeling the miracles in your own life as well as the miracles that we have seen for others.
That's absolutely right. So, folk, we don't want you to run from this because we're not conjuring anything except good vibration and good thoughts, and that is a promise. Strap up. You're going to go for a lovely ride, and I guarantee at the end of everything, you're going to be motivated and encouraged. Teresa?
Sure. So I want to share a quick quote before we jump in, and this comes by way of sociologist William Bruce Cameron. And at first I thought it was Albert Einstein, but Pinterest failed me. So this is coming from William Bruce Cameron, and his thought is that there are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other as though everything is a miracle. So looking at the word magic and looking at miracles, I feel that they are synonymous. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some experiences that I have had. But James, I want you to introduce the book that we both read,
So
which is
we had
entitled The
a
Magic.
wonderful time not long ago. It's about a month or so, maybe more. Um, a book called The Magic, actually, and it's an amazing book. It's actually kind of like a guided devotional. It's a 28-day devotional that talks about magic, but they talk about it from a very interesting perspective. Hang on to your seats, and we'll share with you what that perspective is in just a moment or two. Should I do the scripture?
Go ahead.
So, in the book, The Magic, the central theme is all wrapped around a scripture, believe it or not. It's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 12. And it reads as follows. Matthew 13:12 says, "For whosoever has, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever has not, from him shall be taken away even what he has." I'm sorry, folks. I should have given you this from a different translation. Sometimes the King James is a little choppy, but basically what it's saying is, for those that have, you're going to be given more, and for those that don't, that little you have is going to be taken away. And the way the author wrote the book and her emphasis on this particular scripture, the missing piece to the puzzle that she's talking about is gratitude. That's the magic that she's talking about. Gratitude. So, what she's saying is, to those that have, more will be given. So, when you are grateful, when you have a mindset of gratitude, abundance will come to you. You'll attract great things. When you don't have, when we fail to be grateful, we fail to have a mindset of gratitude, then the little or whatever amount we have can't be taken away. And we just take a moment or two to unpack that. Can we, Teresa?
Yes. So, of course, my love of numerology takes me to trying to figure out how can we break this number down. So, I'm not going to sit here and preach, and I'm not going to read any more scriptures to you, but I am going to break down the numbers. 13 and 12 gives you the number 7. In numerology, looking at the number 7, it's a beautiful breakdown because 4 is the number for the physical. 3 is the number for spiritual. When you put those two together, you're going to get 7. But it is about having perfection and completion. The number 7 also describes the Holy Spirit. 7 is found in the Bible, in Revelation, and we have 7 seals, we have 7 churches, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. But on my side of the spectrum, the life path number 7 is the number of the mystic and of the truth seeker. So I enjoyed going through this 28-day journey. I really liked the book because it forced me to sit with myself and to unpack all the things that I'm grateful for. I started with this devotional when I was going through my recovery. I shared the book with James, I shared it with my children, and I've shared it with a few clients. It's a 28-day journey, and for people who are not readers, it's a easy book to get through. The chapters are they're literally a page and maybe two paragraphs long, and you can work through by getting yourself a pack of notebook paper or getting just like a dollar store journal and just follow the activities from day one to the very ending of the book. You change everything, your mindset. I feel honestly that your spirit changes after going through this journey, and it is simply a journey of gratefulness. So that's my take on, you know, where that scripture leads you. The riddle of the whole premise of the book is to figure out what that scripture meant because there's a missing word, and we found now the missing word is gratitude. So take it away, James.
Teresa, thank you for bringing us up with that information. Incredible, y'all. The numerology of it all, how everything ties together. A wise woman once told me everything is connected. Everything is connected. And it is. If you really take the time to stop, look, and listen, you will see some very profound connections. Us with other people, and each of us individually with different circumstances, situations. There are these connections that we could label magical. And one of the things that is mentioned in the book is that we should never stop looking for the magic because something happens when we reach adulthood. As children, we're bright eyed and we're bushy tailed, and we go through life looking for the sprinkles and the sparkles. You know, we have a very Disney fairy tale like mindset in that we are open to something happening. Unfortunately, with most of us, when we get to adulthood, we stop having that childlike enthusiasm and we just kind of take things on the chin for whatever they're worth. Like, let me give you a case in point. This thing comes to mind, and I was talking to Teresa about this a little before the broadcast. I'll never forget my very first job out of college. I had graduated and gone through everything I need to go through, Morgan State University. And I remember I landed a job with an insurance company. I was so excited. The salary was good, the benefits were great. The place where the company was located was out off of our road here in Baltimore called Interstate 83. It was in a really large, sexy glass building. So it was very upscale. And I felt good about being there. And I was really proud of that whole process. And I noticed on Monday mornings when I would come into work, we would have to take an elevator and go up to like the fifth or sixth floor, whatever it was. And I'd be on the elevator, and when I'd be so happy, so excited, because I'm all suited up. I'm a brand new graduate, and I noticed I get on the elevator. Hey guys, how you doing? Whether I knew the people or not, and everybody would say, "Man, the traffic just sucks. Oh God, I can't stand the rain. It's just too far out." And everything that came out of people's mouths from the time they left their car to the time that they got to their stations was all negative. And I realized after a couple of days that I'm going to get swept up into this mindset if I'm not careful. And this had nothing to do with the fact that I felt like I was better than anybody. That's certainly not what I was saying. But I realized I didn't want to be swept up into that low vibrational kind of a mindset. So I started saying stuff like, I actually like the rain. It makes me want to reflect on things. I put on my jazz or whatever, and I keep going. I sing in the rain, I dance in the rain. And people would turn around and look at me like I was absolutely crazy. And I realized that it was important for me to swim upstream. Whatever the prevailing mindset was, if it didn't fit or match who I was wanting to become, who I wanted to be, then I just went the opposite direction. And I still do that. I will purposely go into businesses and say something off color just to change the whole vibe because it's important that we understand that this whole concept of magic, of gratitude, is key. When you have a grateful mindset, you are saying to yourself and to other people, I choose to put my attention. And we can take the time to unpack that, but I don't want to stop the show because I know, Teresa, you have so much more to talk about. Can we talk for a minute, Teresa, about the differences between the vibrational frequencies? Just for a second.
Sure. So we know that there are certain frequencies and harmonics that musically can alter your physical body, everything about you. And we have now learned that there are very specific frequencies. 528 hertz is a frequency of love. 540 is even higher than love, and that's the frequency of gratitude. 432 is a frequency for healing the heart chakra, and just helping you to get through certain traumas. But it's interesting that the frequency for gratitude is higher. It's higher than love and healing. So that should tell you that gratitude is way up there. The lower frequencies that are in just a single and the double digits, 20 frequency is shame. We have 30 guilt, 50 apathy, 75 is grief. I've been there a long time. 100 is fear, 125 frequency is desire, and 150 is anger. What's interesting though, the highest frequency of all is 963. That's the God frequency. But I really wanted to take a good hard look at the 540 for gratitude. And there was a scientific study that was done in 2020, and it was a double blind crossover pilot study where they were going to play a specific frequency for 20 minutes on one day, and the second day a different frequency. And they have found that the frequency for love and for healing actually was causing changes in their physical bodies. Their blood pressure was lowered, their moods were heightened, their heart rates were lowered, and it was almost like they were reporting back that they were feeling calm. They felt better listening to the lower frequency, which was 432. So, just a quick peek at, how frequencies change, how they can change our physical bodies, how they can change your very blood pressures. So, that was just something I thought that was very interesting.
Because so that makes everything we're talking about very practically applicable in everyday life. These are not things that are restricted to academics or physicians or people in particular professions or classes. These are things we're bringing to the form because we believe that these are very practical things all of us can use and benefit from. So you understand that there are higher frequencies and there are lower frequencies. And it really should
Mhm.
be incumbent upon all of us to try to hang out in the higher frequency area. Everything has a vibration, everything has a sound. It emits a frequency, it's saying something. And in the universe that we live in, frequency is the language of choice. I mean, there's light, there's so many different things and ways that information is communicated, but frequency is huge. And I just got to share this real quick too. So when I met Theresa at some point in time, shortly after meeting, um, she had mentioned to me that she had a toothache, and I said, "Well, you going to go get that checked?" Because she was holding her face for a couple of days, and she was really struggling. And as a friend, I was concerned about my friend's well being. And she said, "Oh no, I'm just going to play a YouTube video." And I said, "Do what now?" I said, "Woman, you better take your hind parts to the doctor and get to the dentist and let them take a look inside your mouth." And she was like, "No, I just play a healing frequency through YouTube." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So she's one of those. Okay." Remember that
Wow,
conversation?
I do. Those, by the way, are
What's
called
the
binaural beats, and those
binaural
are on.
beats?
They're on YouTube. There is a binaural beat for everything: kidney pain, kidney stones, dental issues, migraines, everything. The key to this is if you're going to play the frequency wherever on your body is hurting, you want to have the speaker close enough so that the vibration from the frequency it can vibrate into you. So I would put my phone up against my cheek to help the pain on my face.
And it's so funny because I now use those binaural beats. I am a
Mhm.
believer because I understand, at least I think I do, the importance and the practicality of frequency.
No,
And
I'm not telling people to not go to the dentist, but if it's a Sunday night and you're in pain and the ambisol is not working, get the binaural beats into motion.
and amen. I like that. That's very good. Listen, folks, please get the medical attention that you need. We don't want to be, liable for you falling into poor health. We're just simply mentioning what is available and what can be possible for you. And it's just important that we understand this. So, one of the points you mentioned, Teresa, I want to just go back to very quickly, which is the fact if you heard Teresa, she said that the frequency of gratitude is higher than the frequency of love. So that tells you that gratitude is really where we need to be. And when
Mm-hmm.
you are grateful, when you have a mindset of gratitude, you're emitting a frequency into the universe that welcomes good things to come back to you, which is why the scriptures, what it said, to whom much, who to whom, let me not try to paraphrase it without looking at it. Let me just read it. It says, the scripture says, for whosoever has, to him shall be given. Like you would think that whoever has in abundance from that person would be taken and freely distributed to those who don't. But that's not what it says. It says, to whoever has, from him shall be, to him shall be given. So when you have an abundance of gratitude, you can expect more things to come your way. I don't know if you've ever known folks that have been in a mindset of gratitude. I can tell you, our co-hosts and things like that. One of the things that's really impressed me with Teresa, and I'm not just saying for the promotion show, but it is true. This woman is a woman, a person who is not only a light worker, but she walks with a mindset. She lives in a mindset of gratefulness, and she's magical. I've watched things happen for her, and I've said to myself, my God, this woman has incredible favor because it was like she could do no wrong. It was like just goodness just followed her everywhere she went. And when I started to really kind of understand who she was and what motivated her and from which well she was drawing, I started to say, oh, okay. So she is the kind of person that lives the way she talks. She's not just sharing something she read in a book. She is sharing something she read in a book, but not it's not something that's just in word only. She's a doer. And this is why she wanted to bring this to this particular form. So let me shut down for a second and just say this. Teresa, can you do two things for us? Can you take us back since I've mentioned that I really am excited about you being a person who walks with a mindset of gratitude? Can you take us back to whenever that magical time was when you were first introduced to magic and gratitude and bring us forward from that moment? Because I think it's important that we get the how did you become acquainted with magic in general? Would you tell us that story?
Sure. So the magic I was looking for, it was not gratefulness, it was not gratitude, but I stumbled on it in my pursuit. And somebody asked me last week, "Well, how did you even get into all of this stuff?" And so I'll share. I was back on the island, and at this point, I think I am maybe 19. And as usual, it was a day I had to go into town to pay bills for my mother. She wasn't feeling well, so I had to jump on the bus and do all the errands. Now, back in those days, you there was no option to pay things online because there was no online. You had to get in line to pay things. So it was the phone bill, it was light bill, it was water. I mean, every place had a window and you had to stand at the window to make your payments. And so she handed me an envelope with cash and she said, "Hey, I think there's going to be money left over. Go ahead and jump in a cab and come home." And I was like, well, I kind of had other plans. So I walked all through town. I did all my errands, and as I'm walking back, I'm coming through with what we call Market Square. So I'm coming down. Marianne's is on my left. Green Corner is on my left, and on my right may have been like the old Parrotfish record store. I can't remember. But as I'm making my way past Marianne's, there was an alley. As I'm walking past the alley, there was a lady, and everybody knew the lady who was there. She was a reader. She sat on this little metal folded chair, and when I close my eyes to retell a story, I can see it just as it unfolded. She was sitting in her chair. She had her feet on top of her shoes, and she started calling to me. She didn't speak much English. And cars were going by, and I looked back, and she kept saying, "Mommy, mommy, come." And so I'm like, okay, well, because I'm not going to take a taxi home, I have extra money. I know she's going to say something to me. And she said, "Come, I have a message for you." And she took my arm and took me down her little alley and into her store, which that was my first experience going into a botanica. And when I stepped up into her store, I felt like I was surrounded. There was so much happening in this little space. True authentic botanicas are just stocked. I mean, there's no wall space. The walls are covered, the shelves are everywhere. It's just products, it's stuff. And it comes at the person who doesn't have experience with any of these things. She's motioning to me. She's asking me if I had $10, which is exactly how much I had. And she motioned for me to sit. I sit at this table, and I felt comfortable because the table was filled with all these statues of saints. And being Catholic, I knew who those saints were. I felt safe. I gave her the two $5 bills. She washed her hands. She washed my hands with Florida water, and she pulled out her cards. And for the next 20 minutes, this lady read my entire life. And I went from moments of crying to moments of feeling encouraged to then feeling very fearful because the information she shared with me, she said that it was going to happen just as she said. And she said, "Watch, you'll see, you'll see." And she was then urging me to know that this great water was coming and it was going to send me to a new place. And I was like, yeah, right. I'm very grounded where I am. I lived on the island. I was still living with my mom. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And she then tells me how many children I would bear, how many marriages. She gave me descriptions for everything. She told me about the families that would receive me and they would not like me. She told me to the very descriptions of in laws how I would be shunned and how I would be ill treated. And so after talking to her, I left out of there. I was shell shocked, and I walked home. I left there, and my whole plan was I wasn't going to take a taxi home. I was going to go see my dad, and I just kept walking right into Western Cemetery to sit to have a chat with my dad because I was overwhelmed. And I mean, I write all of this entire story. It's in my book. I promise it's coming in a few months. I'm still diligently trying to get through certain chapters, but that was my first really profound experience with what I was understanding was magic. It was my first experience being read with a deck of cards, and I have never forgotten this woman. Like, it's almost like I can still feel how she held my arm, how she looked at me. I mean, and whenever I visit home, I have to go past this alley, and I know she's not there anymore, but I have to look down that alley because that's where it all started for me. So my big, jump into magical things, mystical things, it started with that lady. I don't know her name. I've tried to get her name, so I've just renamed her in my mind. I call her Josefina for writing purposes, but that was my big intro to this life.
So, Theresa, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that we're clear for everybody listening. So, as you know people, at least you think you do. So, you keep mentioning an island. What island are you from? Is that Haiti, Jamaica? Where are you from?
Don't ever confuse
You
St.
mean you're
Thomas.
not a native East Baltimorean like me?
Never, and I'm never gonna claim it. Sorry. I am from the U.S. Virgin Islands, America's paradise, Rock City. I'm from St. Thomas. I am
The Virgin
from
Islands.
the West End. My family was there. They lived in Frenchtown. My parents built in Lindbergh Bay, and I am an official West girl from the West End.
That is so awesome. Now, Teresa, that was many years ago. Have you had any recent experiences, folks? Because we're talking about magic, and we're using a very practical definition. What did we say that definition was in the beginning, Teresa? Magic is.
Magic is, and I'm going to just paraphrase it, magic is when something happens and it has a source that you yourself, humanly, you can't explain. Um, and
So,
that's just a
folks,
quick and dirty
how many
definition.
times have, thank you for that, Teresa. How many times have we all been in this situation where we said we made a decision, we went in a route that we wouldn't normally go, and we would always say, what? Something told me
Hmm.
something, and every time we have that something told me, it usually ends up in an extraordinarily wonderful situation. I have never heard of somebody saying something told me and they ran into a problem, they got into harm's way. Every time we usually equate the fact that something, and I'm, you can't see me but my fingers are up doing the air quotes, every time you hear somebody say something told me, that usually results in something absolutely extraordinary. I want to take a minute to thank everybody who joined us. I see all of our friends and family from the VI, from Florida, and from all over. We thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us. So, when you hear that something told me, that usually results in something magical. We're going to something out of the ordinary, something that was never going to take place the way you thought it was. And that way you experienced it was a good way. It was more than you had even asked or thought for. That's what we're talking about. Teresa, can you give us an example recently of a magical moment that you've had, please?
Oh, I have tons. I have so many because I live my life by magic. I live every day, I get up looking for the magic that's going to find me. This is how I have coped. This is how I have gotten through some very difficult days. But every day has to have magic. It has to, and it does. So the most recent is what happened to me with Hopkins. And I sometimes feel like maybe I'm oversharing. I should find another story to talk about. But this is the most magical, it's the most recent that has happened. Now, the surgery that I had to go through, it was emergency. And
Take your time. Take your time. Your
so what people would consider that to be, the ugliest or the most frightening. For me, I was never afraid.
Not at all. The people around you, it's so amazing.
And the
The folks
reason
around you were not afraid either. Not near one of us really came to grips with the fact that we could have lost at that time. Everybody was working and moving in this unbelievable flow of people all knew that you were going to pull through this.
So what brings me to tears now, every time I speak this story, I'm so humbled because there are people that experienced this that never made it. They never made it to the hospital. They never made it out of the ambulance. They never made it off their floor. People die in their homes. People fall out in their homes and they die. And their relatives are left with these questions and these pieces trying to figure out, could I have done something different? I wanted to be there. Why couldn't I be there to help or to save? Or I never feared what was happening because I just had faith. I knew that it was a surgery that had to happen. But on the seventh day, I was in the ICU. I was on life support. I was on all the bells and the tubes and all that stuff. And I was finally moved to the progressive unit. And it was my seventh day. And I woke up that morning and I had a walker, and Carly was spending the night with me every night. And this particular night, she was tired because she was doing the things that the nurses wanted to do for me, but she was insisting that she would bathe me, she would brush my hair. She was doing everything for me. And that was the first day that I was able to get out of the bed, and I snuck out of the bed with the walker to go to the bathroom by myself. I just didn't have the heart to wake up, and I didn't want to ring the call bell. So I made it back to bed. I had an alarm on the bed, so the nurse came in and she knew that I had gotten up. And I said, "Hey, while you're here, I want you to know that this is going to be the night that I'm not going to accept pain medication because I don't need it for tonight." And my nurse she was Haitian, and she said, "Are you serious?" And I said, I am. And she said, "Well, why is that?" And I said, "Because I feel like I just have to be aware. I have to be alert, and I don't want any pain meds tonight." So, for those of you who don't know, my aorta dissected on January 13th. And so I had open heart surgery. And so, if you know what that is, you know that they saw through your ribs. They cut my chest open. And I needed pain meds. I was getting pain meds in my IV. I was getting pain meds by mouth at this point because I was now able to eat. And they kept me really high to help me to manage this pain. And this night I said, "No, I think I'm gonna be fine. I just don't want any medicine." And she said, "I'm gonna keep checking on you because I have to document this." And I said, I'm gonna be good. My daughter is here with me. And so the night goes on, and about 2 hours in, I'm laying in the bed, and I was not sleepy. I was not needing any pain management. And I started to hear this really loud music. And so I rang the call bell and I asked her, "Whoever is playing the loud music, can you please have them to turn it off because it's disturbing me?" And she said that she only had three patients and everybody else was asleep. There's no one else on the unit that's awake who would be playing anything. And she said, "What are you hearing?" And I said, "It's coming from that corner." And that's where my daughter was asleep in the recliner. And she said, "Well, let me see if her iPad is on. I'll turn it off." And she checked. She said, "Oh, no, everything is off. Do you still hear it?" And I kept telling her yes. And she just looked at me. She said, "You sure you don't want those pain meds?" And I said, "No." So she left. I dimmed the lights, and the music was getting louder. The music I was hearing, it sounded like harps. It sounded like singing. It was like chamber pipes. It was so loud, I couldn't concentrate. So I kept trying to wake Carly up. She's asleep, and I started to just stare straight ahead of me. The wall ahead of me was my TV, and then there was a huge space. And that wall, the surface of that wall, it had a ripple. And I started to see an image bleeding through the wall. I was not afraid, but I was not clear on what this was that was appearing. And I knew something was coming because I had to be clear minded. And the image that came through on that wall, it was a bloodied face with a crown of thorns on the head. The music started to get lower, and the face of Christ came onto that wall. And so I'm staring at the wall and I'm taking a deep breath. And all around the back of my bed, where all these machines were, I heard very clearly, "So are you going to tell them?" And I waited because I am clearly losing my shit at this point. And the voice said it again, "So are you going to tell them?" And I answered, "Tell them what?" And the voice said, "Who saved you?" And I'm looking straight ahead of the wall ahead of me. The face is now gone, and now it's just this noise and this voice. And the voice said, I saved you. Those doctors didn't save you. Those nurses didn't save you. The surgeons didn't save you. I said, who are you? And the voice said, I saved you. I am saved you. So at that
It's
moment,
it's it's 3 hours in the morning. You didn't take
it's
your pain.
about 3 a.m. at this point.
You didn't do your pain meds. You opted out of those. It's you in the room. Your daughter is asleep. You're wide awake. You're hearing harp sound, beautiful music, and a face bleeds the wall. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, and you know
I
when I'm
think I
hearing
need some.
this,
I think I need
look,
some pain meds right now.
so I'm hearing this, and you know what I'm thinking? Oh, they coming to get me. They either coming to get me or they left me. Was my two options. So I start yelling for Carly, and she sits right up. Yeah, do you have to get up? You have to get up. You have to go to the bathroom. And I said, where's my phone? And she said, you don't need your phone. And I said, can I have my phone? She said, well, you can't even hold your phone because at this point I couldn't. I could use my arms, but I couldn't hold things because I was so weak. And I said, well, sit the phone against my cup. So I was able to have cups of ice. She propped the phone up and she said, what do you want to do? Do you want YouTube? And I said, no, Facebook. You don't need to do face. I said, please get me to Facebook. And that
Parent becomes
night,
a child, right?
yes, it took me 2 hours and I picked with one finger a status where I described everything that happened and who saved me that night.
Wow, that
So, so when you ask about, you know, a magical experience, there's the beginning and then there's this one, which is the most recent. And that whole journey, yes, it was traumatic and it ripped me out of the grieving process because this happened right in the wake of losing Steve, my brother. But it took me to a different place spiritually because I've said it and I continue to say it. The recovery process almost broke me, but the process of going through the surgery and being in the hospital and being immobilized and being tied down to my bed did not. The recovery part was mentally very challenging because of the high level of pain once I got home. And I was questioning, well, if you saved me, why this? And how long is this? Why would you do, like, why did all of this happen? And I understand it fully now. It's so that I can share this with so many more people because there are people who will never have their chest cut open, who will never have heart issues, who will never have the fear that I live in fear every day. Is this going to happen again? The other tears that I have in my other valves, are they going to? So, this is a lesson for me in having more faith than fear. So, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's
that
my most
is
recent mystical, magical
that is amazing,
situation.
Theresa. Absolutely amazing. I got to also be a little piece of information. You had the three top cardiac surgeons on the planet that did your, and those surgeons told you by way of one of the surgeons about a month or so after, maybe weeks after your surgery, the man looked you in your face. You told me, and he said to you, he said, "Listen, you can't get any better. There's no more talent on earth besides me and my colleagues." And he wasn't being boastful. He was just speaking truth. This was at Johns Hopkins, and he said, "But I'm going to tell you." He said, "I don't know what your belief system is." He said, "But we can tell you when we started the surgery, we knew something was happening in that room that had nothing to do with our collective. or individual expertise. Did he not tell you that?
He did. He sure did. I had a Caucasian surgeon. I had a black surgeon from Trinidad, and I had a Indian surgeon. And one by one, they came in, after the fact to introduce themselves. And I had a nurse that came from the first hospital because she had heard that I had survived, and she came to see for herself because she said the condition I was in and for all of the hours that this had prolonged, there's no way I would have still been around. So, yeah, I think at this point I have more than 9 lives, but somebody
So we're up. So you're on too. Can you hear me? Okay, so folks, we're terribly sorry. We had a bit of technical difficulty there, and we are back up and running now. At least we believe we are. So thank you for hanging in there with us. And we're just going to pick up right where we left off. Teresa, can you remember where you were?
Anybody didn't hear me going off. So back
No,
to
we weren't up yet.
witnessing what witnessing other the magic for other people. And so recently we had something that happened here in Baltimore. The Francis Scott Key Bridge, um, it came down. It collapsed into the Patapsco River on March 26th, and this was at 1:30 a.m. And unfortunately, lives were lost. There were seven construction workers who were sitting in their cars and in their trucks on the bridge taking their lunch break. And an international ship, the Dolly, lost power and lost control and it slammed into this bridge. Now, of the seven construction workers who were all Hispanic males, only one of them survived. And I have been, following this story because I knew at some point, and I was just hoping that this poor man, that he wouldn't have been so badly affected that he would eventually bring his story out. His name is Julio Cervantes Suarez. And this poor man, he doesn't speak much English, but he described, I believe he was on Good Morning America, how he first saw his coworkers, they all were falling into the water, and he knew that was his fate. He said he fell 18 stories into the river. This man said he does not know how to swim. His helmet had a flashlight, which is what he credited for him being able to stay sane because he had a fear of drowning. And he ended up floating to a piece of the wreckage of the bridge, and he was holding on until he was rescued. This man told the interviewer that as he was falling, he was grateful to God. He was being in his space of gratitude as he's falling. And he said this fall also allowed him enough time to apologize to his God for any wrongdoings because he just knew he was going to be gone too. This story, it stabs me in my heart because this man, in the worst time of his life, he's showing gratitude. I wanted to share this story because as he was tearing up when he was recanting what was happening, he said to the interviewer, he doesn't know why God chose to have him survive. But what he thinks is the reason is because there's a goal that he hasn't met yet. And he has this work to do. And part of that work is to share this story. And I thought that this was such an amazing example of gratitude.
So
I
as
don't
he was
know.
falling, as he was off of the
He's
bridge
showing
into the
gratitude.
water below, he has the presence of mind to be great on his way into murky water at 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's black. It's pitch black. The only light he had was his headlight on his helmet,
Wow.
his construction helmet. It's pitch black. If you ever drive over any of these bridges at night, you're going off of muscle memory. I promise you, because there's not much to see. Can you imagine driving or you're parked, you're on a bridge eating? This man was probably enjoying a meal, having some fun, having jokes with his teammates. He said that he feels so guilty because his brother-in-law perished and an 18-year-old nephew he encouraged to apply for this job. They all perished. Can you imagine you're just sitting minding your business, eating, maybe listening to some music, having your lunch, and then the shit just falls from under you, and you
The
know
bridge,
you're going where everybody else is going, 18 stories down into the cold river. Come on. But to have the presence of mind to show gratitude in that moment. There was another story. There was a girl, she was driving over another bridge a couple years ago, young African American female. Her car went over the bridge and she survived. She survived. I can't even imagine. But that's just the one example, one or two examples I wanted to share about, witnessing people showing gratitude and experiencing magic in their life. All of this is magic to me. Call it what you want to call it. This is how I have church, talking about these things, explaining these situations to people so that they can have awareness.
I got to tell you one for me, brief. And folks, we're going to go a little bit longer than the hour. Normally, we would do it very succinctly in an hour, but because we had some difficulties, hang in there with us a few more minutes. Right after the stroke that I suffered in 2018, I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was laying in the bed, and I'm wondering at 48 years old, my left side is paralyzed. I'm wondering what's going to become of James Falcon. Am I going to be able to dance again? Am I going to be able to do karaoke again? What am I going to do? And I remember concluding just simply this, and a feeling came over me that I can't describe, but it was a feeling that was, we're going to make this work. And I didn't pray one of those prayers, and I'm not judging anybody, but we've all been there where you pray one of those bargaining prayers. Lord, if you just get me back to my feet, if you just let me get, and then I'll serve you, I'll do this. I didn't pray that prayer, having prayed that prayer many times before, in the many different situations I put myself in. This was different. This, Lord, whatever state I'm going to be in, whether I can walk again or whether I'll be bedridden or in a wheelchair, I promise to do two things in my life. I promise to encourage everybody that I come across, and I promise to put a smile on people's faces. Those were my two things. And since 2018, I've been committed to doing just that. And I got to tell you, I have had more kindness shown to me in the years since the stroke. I just got to testify a little bit. I've had more people of different races and different backgrounds hold doors open for me, encourage me with incredible stories of their own um, accomplishments and overcoming situations. And it's just been an incredible display of nothing but healing vibration coming from so many different directions since 2018, to a point where I now can leave my house, and whether it's the Uber driver, I've had some Uber driver experience. I've had neighbors, I've had people in stores walk up to me and say, "Sir, you're going to be just fine." I've had people slip me notes, people to hug me and say, "You're going to be fine. I overcame, you're going to overcome." My point, folks, is that there is something about this vibrational thing that we're talking about being in a mind that attracts things from the universe to you. And this author, by the way, what's her first name, love? Teresa?
Who?
Our author, Rhonda,
Whose
of the
first
book
name?
The Magic, Rhonda
Rhonda
Byrne.
Byrne.
Rhonda Byrne, last name Byrne. Rhonda Byrne, in her book The Magic. That's what she's talking about. Living with anticipation, with enthusiasm, expecting to experience the magic, expecting to have many more examples and opportunities where something told you to say or to do so or to go in a particular direction. And that's the magic that we're talking about tonight. You can live there. That can be your home. You know how we always say, I live on that street when we're talking about a particular thing? You
Hmm.
can live there. You can live at your permanent address, can be gratitude, and see what happens. We hope that you can relate to these things, and we want to encourage you, invite you, and give you an opportunity to connect with us, shoot us an email if any of this resonates, if any of this vibrates, pun intended. Shoot us an email at from scratch the podcast at gmail.com. By the way, before we go any further, I got to say this because so many people have asked based on the last podcast that we did. Everybody wanted to know, where is the bell? Well, guess what, folks? There it is, folks. That's the bell. So many people have been like,
Oh no.
where is James's bell? Here it is, folks. In fact, he's such a
The
man.
bell is going bye
Yes.
bye again.
Don't take the bell. Don't take. Teresa hide the bell here in the office. Many people have asked about this daggone bell. That this bell has become like a third co-host on this program. So
No.
let you know, the bell folks is back. And every once in a while, I will indiscriminately and for no reason at all ring this damn bell. So just understand the point. There is none. It's just James being James. So as we go to summarize things and encourage everybody to continue to look with very childlike enthusiasm the magic, would you tell us the second half of your story in the nail salon, please?
Oh, the nail salon lady. So since going through recovery, I just wanted to feel normal again. I wanted to go back to doing the things that I was doing. So I went and I got my feet done, I got my nails done, and when the nail tech saw me, she said, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you in so long." And I said, "Hey, I've been sick, but I'm back now." And she said, "Well, what's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, this, and this happened, and what have you." And she said, "And you made that? You made it?" And I said, "I did." And she said, "Wow." I said, "The God I serve wasn't ready for me to leave this place, so I'm here." And she stood back and she said, "You know, the people at my church tell me that the miracles that happen in the Bible, that that was back in those days, and nobody talks about these miracles anymore." And she says she had been praying and asking to see proof that God still did this work. And I said he absolutely still does. He is still in the miracle business. So she was very emotional. She cried. She was, lifting her hands. She was praying, and she said, she I knew it. I knew it. I knew he still did it. They don't talk about this at church anymore. They only talk about what's in the Bible and what happened then. I wanted to know that he still does it now. I said, "Well, I'm proof. He's still in the business." So James
Nail,
has left us again.
you're in the nail salon. You just getting your nails, just doing some personal hygiene, just doing some self care, little break. You encounter a woman who is just seeing you because you are a regular, and so she's telling you that she has been living in expectation of
Hmm.
seeing and encountering somebody that God had done healing work for, because her church was telling her that God doesn't do miracles. The day of miracles is gone. And she said, that can't be right. And she was praying and asking God, you're telling us, to show her somebody that he has done a miracle for. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
So you tell her
Yeah, she
your
said
story.
her pastor was
What
saying
happened
that
to
the
her?
earth, that there, the her pastor was basically saying that the earth is in a very wicked stage, and so God isn't doing things for the wicked anymore. But I'm proof. I'm still chosen.
So you tell her your story. And what happened to the lady?
Oh, she was ecstatic,
She
absolutely
fell
ecstatic.
backwards on the floor and started crying, didn't she?
She put on a little show, but I'm sure that
Proclaiming. She
she
kept saying,
was.
I knew it. I knew he still do miracles. Folks, this is serious. We should be looking for the magic. And for those of us that have had an experience with the magic, let's make it a point to share that experience with somebody else because they too can be looking for. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get into a preachy mode. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm
Don't do
just so
that.
excited about this story, these lessons, this topic, and folks, I hope you who are listening are equally as excited. Look for the magic, people. Listen
Every
for the
day.
magic, and be a purveyor of the magic. You want to bring us?
And check out the book The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. It is part of her series. She is the author of The Hero, The Secret, The Greater Secret, The Power. I really enjoyed her first book, The Secret. It was a collab with many people in the spiritual community, and the writing is really good. But this book, The Magic, this was a very quick and fast read, and it is life changing. So again, it's a 28-day devotional for you to look for, opportunities to be grateful in your own life. So as a recap, I want to thank everyone for hanging in there. Last week it was my crazy parrot going, doing its thing. This week some technical difficulties, but if you're still here, I just want to thank people for joining. We're going to eventually get all the bugs and the kinks worked out. But I want to remind people to remember to count your blessings, the blessings that you had yesterday. Be thankful for the gift of today and stand firm in the posture of receiving all that you are hoping for tomorrow. This is Theresa Angela. I'm here with my co host, James W. Falcon. And this is where we come, and we are so happy to share time, space, and energy with all of you. Have a blessed night, dream big, and remember to love harder tomorrow.
Good night, all. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Good night.